He stood in the middle of the marble kitchen like a wall, arms crossed, voice cold as steel.
"Before you leave, I need you to empty your pockets." She paused mid-step, still holding the damp dish towel, and turned, slowly. Her eyes locked with his. No panic, no guilt, just an unsettling calm. "Is something missing, Mr. Callahan?" she asked, voice composed, but laced with something sharper underneath. "My wife's diamond bracelet, gone, worth over $20,000. He didn't blink. "And you were the only one who went into her room today." She folded the towel neatly, placed it on the counter, and faced him fully. "I see." He stepped closer, blocking the kitchen exit with his broad frame. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be," he said, his tone sliding into condescension. "I know about your daughter. Life must be tight. Maybe you got confused about what was yours." That was when she smiled, not the nervous kind, not the kind that asks for forgiveness, but the kind that quietly says, "You just walked into something you don't understand." "Mr. Callahan," she said, pulling her phone from her pocket with slow, deliberate movement, "how about we call the police together? I'd love to hear what they think." He froze. This wasn't the script he knew. Guilty people begged, cried, offered excuses. But she looked like she had been waiting for this moment. "Put the phone away," he said, trying to regain control. But it was too late. Her thumb was already hovering over the screen. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. "I insist." That one sentence sucked the air out of the room. And for the first time in 15 years of owning that estate, billionaire Thomas Callahan felt like a guest in his own house. She didn't run. She didn't plead. She just stood there, black, calm, and terrifyingly prepared. And somewhere deep inside he knew he had just made the worst mistake of his life.
The silence in the room stretched like glass, ready to crack. But she just walked past him, slow, steady, and placed her phone gently on the counter like a warning. That was when Thomas noticed something strange. For 8 months, she had been invisible, cleaning in silence. Polite smiles. Yes, sir. No, sir. Not once had she stepped out of line. But now, standing before him in her plain uniform, she felt dangerous. Her name was Ava Monroe, 38, single mother, quiet. That's all the background check had told him when he hired her. She'd shown up every morning at 7 a.m. sharp. Never late, never tired, never nosy. And yet, she had always been listening. She had watched how he spoke to the landscaper, cutting him off mid-sentence. How he refused to tip the black delivery guy who helped carry in his $5,000 wine shipment. How he called every contractor from those neighborhoods a liability risk. She had noticed. She had heard him on the phone, scoffing about entitlement culture when talking to investors. Saying things like, "You give these people an inch, and they'll build a highway over you." And still, she cleaned his floors. Still, she folded his wife's linen with care. Still, she packed his fridge the way he liked. Beer in the back, strawberries up front. But something changed last week. It was when he joked during brunch that he only hires the quiet kind. His wife laughed. Ava didn't. She just stared at the orange juice and said nothing. Because in that moment, The mask cracked, and she realized something important. Thomas Callahan didn't see her. He saw a uniform, a role, a type. Not a woman, not a mother, not a threat. He thought her silence meant weakness, but Ava had mastered silence the way some people mastered knives. Every comment, every insult, every dismissive glance, it all added up. Not in her words, in her memory. Now she stood there, arms folded, not cleaning, not obeying, just watching him, like she had been watching for months. And for the first time, he started to ask himself, what else had she seen? He tried to recover his posture, pulling back his shoulders, raising his chin. "You have a daughter, right?" he asked, voice softer now. "I know you do." She didn't respond. "I mean, things can get hard. Temptation is real, especially when you're raising a kid on your own." He smiled, like he was doing her a favor. "Maybe you just thought no one would notice." She stared at him like she was trying to decide whether he was stupid or just used to being obeyed. "I clean your wife's shoes," Ava said flatly, "not her jewelry drawer." "That's not what I'm saying." "It's exactly what you're saying." There was no anger in her tone, just surgical precision. He was trying to guilt her. It wasn't working. Then her phone vibrated. She glanced at it, eyes lighting up for the first time all day. "Perfect timing," she whispered. Thomas didn't like that. "What's that supposed to mean?" She didn't answer. She just began removing items from her pockets, calmly, like she had done this 100 times. Out came a set of house keys, a folded grocery list, a mint, a half-used lip balm, a crumpled tissue. She held her palms open. "Nothing else." He squinted, still suspicious. "No bracelet, no theft. Still want to call the cops?" she asked. Thomas hesitated. The moment was slipping from his hands. He could feel it. Then, ding-dong. The doorbell. Once, then again. Ding-dong. Ding-dong. Rapid, impatient. The sound echoed through the polished marble hallway. Ava didn't flinch. "I should get that," she said, already turning toward the entrance. "Wait! Who's at my door?" he snapped. She didn't turn back. "You'll see." As she walked away, her steps were measured, confident. And for the first time, Thomas realized something terrifying. This wasn't a reaction. This was a plan. He hadn't caught her off guard. He had walked into something bigger, something rehearsed, something he never imagined someone like her could pull off. He stayed frozen in place, listening to her heels click against the stone floor as the doorbell rang again and again. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't confused. She was ready. And he? He had no idea what was about to walk through that door. The front door opened with a quiet creak. Thomas leaned forward, trying to see who was there, but his feet wouldn't move. He heard voices. Multiple. One older woman. One younger. A man, too. Calm, composed, professional. Then footsteps. 4 pairs, maybe 5. Too familiar. Too casual. Too invited. Ava reappeared in the hallway, leading them in like she owned the house. Behind her walked 3 black women, all different ages, but each carrying the same weight in their eyes. And a man in a charcoal suit, with a leather briefcase that looked far too expensive for a surprise visit. Thomas squinted. "I didn't invite. Who are these people? Ava, what is going on?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned and gestured toward the living room. "Mr. Callahan, would you mind joining us in the sitting area? We have quite a bit to cover." That sentence, "We have quite a bit to cover." It hit harder than any accusation. He followed, numb, confused, until he stood before the group now settled comfortably on his $12,000 leather furniture. The man in the suit stood up. "Mr. Callahan, I'm Jordan Ellis, employment rights attorney. I represent Ms. Monroe." He pointed at Ava Dash. "And several other women you've previously employed and terminated under suspicious conditions." Thomas blinked. "What are you talking about?" "This is Mrs. Davis," Ava said, pointing to a gray-haired woman seated near the window. "You accused her of stealing a watch in 2021. Thomas hesitated. He remembered. She left crying. No proof. No apology. "This is Kendra," Ava continued. "She was here for 6 months. Let go after your wife's ring went missing. Turned out it was under the bed." The youngest woman nodded silently. "And this," Ava smiled thinly, "is Sharon. Fired after 4 years because your wife thought she misplaced a check." "Stop," Thomas muttered. "This is ridiculous." "No," the lawyer said, stepping forward. "What's ridiculous is the pattern we've uncovered." He opened his briefcase. "For the past 8 months, Ms. Monroe has documented a consistent, racially biased pattern of accusations against black domestic workers in this home." "She's a maid," Thomas scoffed. "What kind of documentation could she possibly have?" Ava didn't blink. "I was a maid. Before that, I was an investigative reporter. Columbia graduate, Seattle Tribune. Until I started looking into race-based firings among elite households like yours." Thomas staggered. "I took this job because I knew exactly who you were the moment you opened your mouth." She pulled a folder from her bag and handed it to the lawyer. He began placing photos, documents, and printed emails on the coffee table. "You have no idea what I've heard in this house," Ava said. "But you're about to find out." And just like that, the walls of Thomas Callahan's empire began to shake. Thomas stared at the papers on his coffee table like they were in a language he couldn't read. Photos of his house, transcripts of recorded phone calls, employee complaints he never thought would resurface. "You can't prove anything," he muttered. Ava stepped forward, pulled out her phone, and pressed play. Thomas's own voice filled the room. "This Ava girl seems perfect. She looks like someone who'd steal if she had the chance. When something goes missing, we'll have our scapegoat ready." His heart dropped. "That's fake. That's edited." "We have the original file," the lawyer replied, "with timestamp and metadata." Thomas stumbled back a step, gripping the edge of a chair. "I was joking. That was sarcasm." "Your sarcasm cost these women their jobs, their homes, their reputations," Ava said, eyes locked on his. He turned to the other women, suddenly remembering their names, their faces. I didn't mean for it to go that far." "But it did," Sharon interrupted. "You didn't just fire us. You blacklisted us." "I lost everything," Mrs. Davis whispered, "and you never once apologized." Thomas tried to pivot. "I need to call my lawyer." He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Harvey, it's me. I need you to come over right now. There's a situation." He paused, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean you can't take the case?" "Harvey, we've known each other for 20 years. What conflict of— Hello? Hello?" The line went dead. He tried another firm. Same answer. Conflict of interest. Another. And another. Every door that usually opened for him now slammed shut. I already reached out to every firm you've worked with, Jordan said. Any attorney who takes your case now would face immediate ethics violations. You planned this, Thomas hissed. For 8 months, Ava replied, calm as ever. While you looked right through me. You don't know who you're messing with, he barked, voice rising. No, Ava said softly. You don't. She reached behind one of the bookshelf decorations and pulled out a tiny black device. This is one of 9 audio recorders I planted. Thursday mornings, library, when you were on the phone with your contractors. Thomas's knees nearly buckled. All those casual chats about bribing inspectors and cutting deals under the table. She smiled. I was vacuuming the hallway. Remember? He said nothing, because for the first time in his life, he had nothing left to say. Ava opened her Instagram app, angled the camera, and went live. Hello, everyone. This is Ava Monroe. I'm currently in the home of Thomas Callahan. You're about to hear exactly what goes on behind the marble walls of billionaires who think black workers are disposable. The viewer count exploded. 2,000, 5,000, 9,800 within seconds. Thomas's eyes went wide. Turn that off right now. You touch this phone, the lawyer warned, and it's witness intimidation on record. We're already backed by 3 civil rights groups. The numbers climbed. 14,000, 17,000. Comments poured in. Expose him. This is America's real face. Justice. Finally. Calls flooded Thomas's phone. His secretary. His business partners. Even his country club. Thomas, what is this video online? Why are we trending? You need to issue a statement now. Clients are backing out. Do you understand? He dropped the phone. Across the room, Ava read her own notifications aloud. 3 investors pulled out. Your downtown projects canceled. Oh, and your company's trending on Twitter, under hashtag #CallahanExposed. Then came the knock. 2 plainclothes detectives stood at the door, badges out. Mr. Callahan, one said, we need to speak to you about multiple irregularities in your municipal construction contracts. We have a warrant to search the premises. Thomas looked around the room. His mansion, now filled with evidence, with witnesses, and 20,000 strangers watching every move on a phone screen. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Ava stood tall. You built this empire on silence and fear, but you forgot. Some of us were never afraid of cleaning your mess. The detective handed him the warrant. He didn't take it, because he couldn't move. His face was pale now, shoulders sunken. A man watching everything he built collapse in real time. And Ava? She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She simply adjusted her sleeves, looked at the camera, and said, America needs to see this, because what happens behind these gates is no longer a secret. 6 months later, the office view was different. 22 floors above the streets of downtown Seattle, Ava Monroe stood behind the glass, arms folded, watching the city move. The plaque on her desk read, Director of Investigative Journalism, The Seattle Herald. She had returned, not as a maid, but as a name people now whispered with respect and fear. Her exposé on Thomas Callahan's racial abuse had gone national. The live stream footage was used in court. The lawsuits? Ongoing. 3 civil rights groups were backing the case. The damages could reach millions. But Ava had already won something bigger. Across town, Thomas Callahan sat alone in a nearly empty apartment. Most of his real estate empire had collapsed. Half his staff gone. Contracts terminated. He was under federal investigation for bribery and tax fraud. His name, once spoken in boardrooms with pride, now trended with hashtags like number privilege fallen and number racism revealed. He turned on the TV, and there she was. Ava, standing at a podium, receiving the National Award for Journalism in Racial Justice. Reporters cheered. Flashbulbs popped. She didn't smile much, just enough. Back in her office, Ava read a letter that had arrived that morning. It was handwritten, from a young black college student in Texas. Your story gave me the courage to fight back. I used to think people like us didn't stand a chance. Now I know better. Ava folded the letter gently and placed it in a drawer already filled with dozens like it. She didn't need to shout to change the world. She just had to be seen. As she stepped out of her office, passing the newsroom where interns now whispered her name like a legend, she paused in front of a framed newspaper clipping. It was from the day Callahan was taken into custody. Beneath it, someone had written in red marker, "She cleaned his house, then she cleaned him out." Ava smiled, because that wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning.